Hi, I'm your L7 movie guy, PR Marks. This is the show for all your movie streaming recommendations and reviews. Let's get started. First up we have is Pizza Movie. This is a comedy about two college students that have a chaotic night after taking an experimental drug while on a simple mission to get pizza. That leads to hallucinations and life-changing revelations. Whoa, cool, dude. So when I came across this film's title alone on Hulu, I got immediately excited. That's because who doesn't like pizza for all its glory and deliciousness? Bad people, that's who.
Well, duh.
Which I've always told myself if I was to ever find that significant other in my life, she would have to love two things unconditionally as much as I do. One of them being punk rock music and the other, you guessed it, pizza. Then, after watching this film's trailer, I realized very quickly it's not really much about pizza than it is so much more about a chaotic, meta, out-of-pocket, college drug-filled night that turns into a visual spectacle that seemed to have a lot to offer in the comedy department.
Way better, for your sake.
So, after watching this one, I could only describe it as something that is fast-paced, random, awkward silliness of a film like Scott Pilgrim vs. the World meets the attitude cartoon version of SpongeBob SquarePants set in a reality live action, where pretty much anything goes and you're in for a wild roller coaster fun time.
We like to have fun.
Which brings me to my likes and positives for this one. The first thing that I would say that would have to be one of my likes would have to go to its production value. Cause everything from its cinematography, lighting, editing, special effects, and set designs were pretty much incredible and outstanding. And totally successfully pulled it off for all its wackiness and visual comedy that it was trying to display throughout the story.
That is awesome.
The second thing that I liked, or was a positive for me, would have to go to our three main actors and their character performances. Sure, the characters and the performances were very immature and dorky at times, but the chemistry between the three of them really worked and had me laughing quite a bit. Everything from their physical comedy movement to their socially awkward comedic timing of their dialogue really was perfect for this film.
Whatever, dude.
Lastly, for my likes and positives for this film would have to go to the overall setup and pacing throughout the film. Cause not only was it executed very well into introducing us to these characters and its environment and what the overall plot is, but it was just totally in your face and just never let up and kept on moving. Which, yes, it can be very exhausting for many when watching this, but I found it to be very refreshing and unique in its own stylistic way of storytelling, which ultimately had a message of basically being that friendships are important.
Oh, friendship's manship.
Now for my dislikes and negatives for this film, which are not deal breakers, but more like minor things that I noticed when watching it. I'd say the first negative that comes to my mind when watching this film would be some of its fast-paced humor and some of the jokes that were in this. Cause not only does it have its own brand of humor that's constantly being thrown at you throughout the film, it just unfortunately doesn't land all the time and feels just a little too forced down your throat.
You want a cough drop?
Which brings me to my second dislike for this film, and that would have to go to the main female protagonist's bully characters. That's because they were just, well, extremely annoying and didn't sell me on their performances when it came to their comedy mean-spirited behavior. That, unfortunately, was an obstacle that I really had to overcome when watching this film.
It certainly does suck.
Lastly, for the negatives, you could just tell at a certain point they were gonna play it safe for its overall ending. Which, even though it worked for its overall message, I just felt like with all the random, crazy wackiness that we get in this film, I was hoping it would go in a different direction that would be a little bit more surprising. Where maybe for once we didn't have to have this usual, typical, happy, sweet ending that we get in comedy films that ultimately we know is just way too easy of an ending.
Oh, that's too bad, dude!
Overall, I found this one to be really weird and a lot of fun for its approach. I do think though that this is going to be a film that you either really like it or you're gonna really hate it.
Take it or leave it.
Cause this is a film that is really not for everybody, and it might be a little bit too immature or self-aware for people to get into. But I, on the other hand, found this to be quite enjoyable and definitely had me laughing more than not. Which ultimately makes this one super unique in so many different ways, and that is why I'm going to give this one a yay. But for an audience thumb scale, it's going to be a 3 out of 5. Last up we have is Christy. This is a biographical sports drama film starring Sydney Sweeney as a trailblazing female boxer, Christy Martin. The movie is chronicling her rise in the 1990s boxing world and her abusive relationship with her trainer/husband, Jim Martin, played by Ben Foster.
Don't talk down to me, I'll smack you.
Now, right off the bat, I already knew that this film got a lot of praise and recognition, not only for its amazing story, but mostly for its amazing transformation performance from Sydney Sweeney. So once I knew that this was available to watch on HBO Max, I definitely had to go rush to watch it. And let me just tell you, this was definitely one of the better sports films I've seen, as well as biopics I've seen in a very long time.
Oh, really?
Really?
And since the world of boxing as well as female sports has made a huge rise and comeback in the last 7 years, I would say that this was a perfect time for a film like this. Sure, the film comes with its typical rise and fall of a legendary sports athlete, but does an incredible job of showcasing all the abuse and drama of Christy's personal life when all she's just trying to do is find her queer identity.
Gay? No, I'm not gay.
That ultimately can only be described as an emotional, tragic battle that hits way too close to home for many females everywhere. Which brings me to that segment of likes and positives for this film.
Great, it's about fucking time.
The first thing that I would say that I liked right away after watching this film was the story and how it was structured. Cause the director as well as the screenplay writer did an excellent job of displaying all the highs and lows within our female character's life, but in a very shockingly entertaining way that was very familiar or structurally similar to other films like I, Tonya or that Tina Turner movie, What's Love Got to Do with It? That ultimately, if you've ever seen those movies, then you kind of know what you're in store for when going into this.
Oh, that's good, I guess.
The second thing that I consider a like or a positive for this film would have to be its production value when it came to its cinematography, lighting, editing, boxing choreography, wardrobe, as well as the makeup department. For the fact not only does everything look incredible, but it did a very good job of fitting into its period decade it was trying to represent. It also did an outstanding job of making everything feel so real and visually visceral, especially for all the boxing moments in this film, but also for this one crazy abuse scene that was just so horrifying and shocking to watch.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
Lastly, for my likes and positives for this movie, which is a big one, would have to go to the performances by Sydney Sweeney as well as Ben Foster. For the fact that they absolutely, without a doubt, crushed it when being in this movie. They were just so amazing at transforming themselves into these real life characters that at times I had to stop and say, is that Sydney Sweeney or is that Ben Foster? I mean, they were just so outstanding and really made me believe who they were trying to represent. Especially Ben Foster. I mean, God, I hardly even recognized him, and he just was just so evil and manipulative, and he should have won way more awards or got way more praise for this role. Cause everything from their wardrobe, accents, mannerisms, makeup, and even weight gain was just truly remarkable.
I'm sorry, do I know you?
Which brings me to my dislikes and negatives for this film, which there aren't very many, as well as they're kind of just very minor, if anything. The first negative for this film, if I had to pick one, would have to be the boxing storyline. Cause for the fact that even though I personally liked all the boxing moments that were in this, and I felt like they were well placed and well structured throughout the film, I could see this being a negative for some because the boxing stuff is much more of a montage segments throughout the film, And I feel like if you're going into this thinking that it's going to be a boxing movie, then you're sadly mistaken, because it's really not about that. It's about Christy Martin's struggles in her personal life of being a closeted queer woman and trying to make it in the boxing world.
Do you understand?
Totally. I totally understand.
Lastly, for my negatives and dislikes for this movie, which again, I have to say, they are just minor ones. They're not really like a personal struggle I have with this movie. It would have to go to the fact that this was an incredible, horrifying story to tell. And I'm so surprised I never knew anything about this, or nobody really talked about what happened to this poor woman. What I mean by that is I wish they would have just had some maybe like news clips or news footage or even boxing footage of the real life Christy Martin in this film. I think they could have elevated the entertainment factor to a certain level and believability to a certain level.
That's hardly necessary.
In the end, this was an incredible, amazing movie that has a little bit of everything you want in a true life story. Which, let's be honest, The Smashing Machine starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has nothing on this movie.
How do you figure that?
Cause for the fact not only did I give The Smashing Machine a nay, this one on the other hand is just 10 times way more entertaining and 10 times way more of a compelling story to watch compared to that one. This film just had so many different layers of emotions and themes. Like the emotion part, it was just sad, happy, excited, shocking, horrifying themes, when it came to its sports and being a closeted queer person, or themes of abuse and trying to seek help and fighting the good fight against being abused. I think it's just an incredible inspirational story for many people out there that are struggling with that kind of stuff. So that is why I'm going to give this one a yay. But for an audience thumb scale, it's going to be a 5 out of 5. Well, that's all the time we have. As always, smash that like and subscribe button. And if you liked any of the movies we discussed, please leave a comment down below. Thank you for watching, and may the movies be with you. Lates.